when everything can be tested, I think there is a kind of danger of losing that gut and not balancing kind of performance, because obviously we love testing here, but balancing performance with actually, does this feel right? Does it feel right? So having good people who have got that partnership relationship with the client to give proper good counsel on what they think is right for the brand, because they know the client well and they know the brand just as well as the client, if not better.
My name's Mike Lander, and you're listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast, where we bring you actionable insights about sales RFPs, negotiations, and difficult procurement discussions from sales leaders, brand leaders, and procurement leaders. Please subscribe to get updates when new episodes are released. Thanks ever so much for joining me again on Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast, because you've been here before. Great to have you back.
I have indeed, and very, very good to be back. Thank you for inviting me.
So, for the audience, who are you? So, what's your name? Who are you? What do you do? And then your favourite song and why?
Okay, so I am Claire Lambell. I'm MD, Chief Growth Officer here at Southpaw. We're part of Hackhodo, so their UK agency, and very proudly so too. Song choice, that's a really tough one because I probably, like many of your guests, I adore music and actually spoken quite a lot about the power of music on mood and mindset. So if you look at my Spotify playlist, it's very, very varied. But I've been listening to a lot of Stevie Wonder recently.
Oh, wow.
So you can't go wrong with a bit of Stevie.
You can't.
And I love Superstition.
Yeah.
Why? It's not because I'm superstitious. I love the beat and I love the soundtrack and the words, and he's just a serious cool dude for sure.
Absolutely. Definitely. In fact, you've reminded me after this show, I think I'll go back and listen to certainly Superstitious.
Yeah,
definitely.
Can't go
definitely. Wrong. So before we get into, we've got kind of three big questions we want to talk about. And this is off the back of, for people listening, the agency reset report that I wrote, which a lot of people contributed to. So thank you. I had about 300 requests for that. So it hit a nerve, and they were mainly agency leaders from the very largest in the world to the very smallest and the startups and advisors and everyone else along. I wanted to get Claire on to talk about, from an agency perspective, what her views were on that report and where she thinks the future's going. Before we do that, Claire, just like very broadly, how's the market currently? What's going on?
Well, obviously, I'll approach it in terms of how we found it here.
Correct. That's all you can do.
But of course, we stay incredibly close to industry press. And I know that from getting all the campaign alerts, the world is quite a fragile, scary place when it comes to ad agencies. And you only need to look at those alerts that you're getting in inboxes to know that there is no same day. That's always been the case. But obviously, with the advancements in technology and AI, it's definitely putting significant pressure on us agencies. I think what we're finding actually, and we'll come on to talk about this, is that we're being leaned on more and more for our strategic capabilities and our strategic thinking, and making sure that not just the strategic part of it is strong, but actually the work that we then produce marries up to that. So that bridge is incredibly strong. And we're getting more and more briefs asking for human thinking, human insight. And of course, within those briefs, how do we then use the new technology, the AI advancements, to speed up and find efficiencies in then how it's produced? So actually, the market for us has been quite buoyant. Q4, Q1. Obviously, long may that continue, but it's playing to our strengths, playing to what we've always focused on, which is really, really rigorous strategic creativity.
And I think we're going to come back to that as a thread throughout the entire discussion. And as we know, the world isn't falling in. The agency world's not about to collapse. We're not going to lose 90% of the agency workforce in the next 12 months. But the market's shifting. And it's shifting because the client side's shifting. And the clients have now got more choices. The ecosystem's going to start to look different. The buyer's going to start to want different things. And agencies have to work out what their position in that landscape looks like over the next 3 to 5 years. So let's kick off with the opening, bigger themed question. So what's the strategic moat for a creative agency in the next 12 to 36 months, given the rapid advancements in AI and platform plays? Is it positioning? Is it the creative human chops? Is it consumer insights, strategic thinking? What do you think?
Well, I think it's all of that, actually. So I think your question around moat, it won't be the ability to make more creative faster. AI has already solved that. So actually, it's finding opportunities to make the right creative in the right places, of course, for the right commercial incomes, because there is more and more impact from our clients in doing great work for less.
Yes.
So I think, as I said, definitely not a single thing. Perhaps the moat is a bit of a stack. You talk about positioning, how do we own the problem space for the client, take their problems on, and then think about how we then deliver kind of strategic solutions that position the brands around how they continue to build what they've already got that's working well, transform where they need to transform, and ultimately support them in growing in their category and acting as kind of category leaders. So It's about helping brands win attention. And I think that we've got our positioning as Southpaw as challenger brand. So how do we help them disrupt and win attention in a world that with AI could become quite similar?
Exactly right.
Kind of age of average. So how do we ensure that we get the cut through and we win attention in a tricky climate? You talk a lot about kind of human chops, the creative human chops. And absolutely, this is an area that AI can't plausibly do well.
At the moment, it can't. You're right. Exactly. That's right.
Yeah, currently.
Yes.
So, we should absolutely be leveraging the humanness of how we approach the work, how we feel about things.
Yeah. The craft, the judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. And what kind of cultural trade-offs should we make? And importantly, deciding what not to do. We're always fed insights, but it's not necessarily insights that all those insights we play out through the work. We have to make kind of strategic human decisions on what we think is right.
Exactly.
That really important.
That judgment.
That really important gut. So I think those agencies that succeed will continue to deliver really strong creative opinions. I think curate rather than just play out all the insights that these new tools are giving us. And as you say, you use the word taste, but I think having that kind of gut or taste for what we think will work, knowing the brands as well as we should know the brands we're working on, will give us that edge.
Definitely.
I think that's incredibly important. And then you spoke a little bit about kind of consumer insights and data. We're getting more and more and more of this, and everyone will have dashboards. But how do we then translate that into human truths and then use those as emotional levers to build connection with our audiences, with our communities? And importantly, right now, knowing when data might not be so spot on, I think there's a lot of people who still or certainly taking the insights that AI tools are giving us as gospel.
And if everyone's got access to them and they all look the same, you're back to that market of sameness.
Yeah.
Everything
absolutely.
looks very similar.
Yeah.
Everyone's chasing the same thing off the same insights.
Yeah, for sure. I think it is that gut instinct, that bit, that we love doing here, which is understanding how emotion can move people to make a decision.
Exactly. And I think, we're not saying that insight's irrelevant. The opposite. Data and insight are critical, but it's what I would call necessary but not sufficient. What you're talking about is, I think if I play back, that human craft, that judgment, that insight, that experience becomes critical. Yeah. And we'll come back to it through the recording I've got a view about a 3-layer model with an agency world, which is you've got the cockpit, high judgment, craft, strategic insight, working side by side with your clients, giving advice, being the partner. Yeah. You've then got the orchestration layer in the middle, which is pulling things together. I don't mean the automation bit of like one agent talking to the next agent. It's not a Zap thing. It's the orchestration of different parts of the ecosystem. Humans have to still connect bits and work out which bits should go to which people. And is the quality good enough? And then you've got the engine. I mean, the engine room is the dangerous part, which is if you're in the market of taking a master brand and turning it into 1,000 assets, that's probably not a great place to be if you want differentiation and premium pricing.
Yeah.
But that top layer, the cockpit, there's a lot of value in that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the next one, as deployment of campaigns based on that kind of master creative brand asset becomes truly commoditized, that engine bit we were just talking about, how can agencies really maintain that kind of premium price? You know, there's examples like AdCreative.ai, Smartly.io. They're platforms that disrupt the creative agency sector. And I'm not judging if they're good or bad, and they're certainly not sponsoring the show, but they exist and people talk about them.
Yeah.
So what are your views, Claire?
Well, firstly, you're absolutely right in framing this shift. It's happening. You know, so platforms like AdCreative.ai, Smart.io, Meta Advantage are all making kind of distribution level creativity table stakes. And I think for us, you know, we know that creatives are easily multiplied. So the previous example, as you say, is once you've come up with a brand idea, a key visual, you know, you can then absolutely leverage these platforms to deliver huge efficiencies for your clients. So that is where there is challenge for sure in agencies that have had a model that has been based on, you know, heavy load production for sure. So I think your point around how agencies can differentiate, I think there's kind of 4 key areas for me, which is campaigns in terms of campaign delivery are more disposable now. So I think agencies that look at being more flexible to different operating systems, creating master ideas that high value, but then giving thought to then how they travel across platforms and context and time. And then, of course, within toolkits, defining rules of expression. So not just thinking about asset first. So, you know, gone are the days where we want a 60 second TV ad, please. It's thinking about something that's going to endure the test of time, is going to give them that positive disruption and challenge in a world that could quite easily become this sea of sameness, as I've just kind of touched on earlier.
What's that rules of expression? What do you mean by that? I'm not sure I understand what that means.
So how the brand is kind of showing up. So, you know, it's a consistency point, but kind of rules of engagement, I guess. Right. So where AI might just adopt and adapt in terms of format or the practicalities of the production part of it, the tone, you know, right. So the language we use, the personality that comes through. So it's more the heart part of the brand idea.
Right.
I think is incredibly important to get through, which is what I kind of meant by expression. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. Definitely.
Great. The second area probably in terms of how agencies can continue to show value and succeed is this kind of narrative architecture. I've actually just touched on it in terms of personality and language and tone of voice. I think humans will continue to win at this storytelling.
Yes.
Long-term storytelling and making sure that we are thinking, and actually we touched on it just before the pod, around the Japanese, the culture. Yes. The culture part that the Japanese absolutely adore and consistently staying true to. And so it's actually thinking about how that works for the long term. So it's thinking less short term, more long term in terms of how is that brand going to thrive, not just survive in a world that is becoming more and more AI enabled and run by that. So it's the storytelling part, which we here at Southpaw adore and put a lot of heart and soul into.
Yep.
And then maybe the third area is around judgment. So when everything can be tested, I think there is a kind of danger of losing that gut.
Yeah.
You know, and not balancing kind of performance, because obviously we love testing here, but balancing performance with actually, does this feel right?
Exactly.
Does it feel right? So having good people who have got that partnership relationship with the client to give proper good counsel on what they think is right for the brand, because they know the client well and they know the brand just as well as the client, if not better. And then actually that leads me quite nicely onto my final point, which is we're incredibly proud of our average tenure with clients. You know, it's well over 9 years, but we are client partners. We're not suppliers.
Yes, exactly.
And I think clients are looking more and more for human partners. So those who are not just there to celebrate the wins, but also those who are happy to saddle up and ride the choppier waters with them. those that know their business just as well as them, if not better, and obsess over what's next.
Yes.
Looking ahead, not in the rearview mirror, and giving them confidence, calmness, and really importantly, clear direction.
And I think that last one around, I think all the points are brilliant. It's interesting when I posed the questions before we had the recording, I was sat there thinking, oh, blimey, actually, they're quite difficult questions to respond to.
Yeah, you
because
good homework, Mike.
Well, that's great, Claire, that I gave some homework. The responses are really good because it is difficult in a market that production is being commoditized. It's like, well, and that's where the production engine was where a lot of agencies were comfortable and where they made good money in the past. And that's going now. What we're talking about broadly here is that judgment layer, that senior experience, that craft, that storytelling, higher order skills is where we're basically saying that we need to focus more of our attention. I was talking to another creative person last week who has been in the creative industry for many years, like you have, very experienced. And he was saying, look, some of the campaigns that don't test well are the ones that cut through the most. And if you just relied on AI, it would tell you, well, that isn't going to work.
Yeah.
But we know, and there are certain very old school campaigns, like the Gorilla campaign that everyone knows, that tested really badly. But it was one of the world's, leading adverts and has stayed in people's memories for years and years and years. So machines don't always get it right. You do need human judgment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And a great example, actually, you've used. I've argued that very point a few times in my career, for sure.
So how should agencies balance the kind of AI with authentic intelligence on behalf of clients, i.e. that human edge, the craft, the judgment? You have to do both because clients are asking about it. We can't just say it's all about the craft because the clients will be saying, yeah, that's true, Claire, but I've got targets to hit and I've got a production engine to run and I need to tell the board what we're doing with AI to make things more efficient and effective.
Yeah. So look, I think this is a great question to lead on from the previous, actually, because I think the reality is that those platforms are brilliant at automating kind of high volume production. I think they can absolutely improve performance iteration and they can reduce friction at the execution layer without a doubt, which is why, as you say, those agencies that have been built on heavy production and output will struggle.
Yeah.
What they don't do, and again, we've touched on this already, is they don't, or certainly can't, always make the best ethical or cultural judgments. They can't decide on the most appropriate strategic or creative trade-offs, and they definitely can't build trusted relationships that endure the test of time. Well, obviously I do know that AI is being used often actually by people as their kind of their kind of counsellor, their confidant. But actually when it comes to our world and how we're working with our partner clients, I think, as I said, that trusted partnership absolutely will endure the test of time as we both navigate a very, very changing world. So I think, to your cockpit analogy, I think let the platforms handle the engine and agencies continue to own the direction and orchestration. We're perhaps the conductor.
Exactly.
Of an orchestra.
We're the conductor.
Another analogy, but a conductor of an orchestra and knowing who to call on and what to call on and when.
Yes, definitely. So let's just talk about, in fact, before the kind of like the roundup question at the end, let's ask you a different question, which I haven't again prepared because they're always the best, which follows on from that theme. At an industry level, so I'm not talking about Southpaw, at an industry level, what happens to the future of the industry regarding talent of the future? We used to bring people in, and it was the same in consulting. You'd go in as a junior consultant. You'd learn your craft from directors and partners. If you did really well and you tuned in, then you became a director and a partner, and then you brought in the next wave. And that's how the model worked. What we're talking about here with the 3-layer model, the role of the conductor, the orchestration, and the engine moving more towards platforms, less and less need as an industry for more junior entry-level people in the old roles. That doesn't mean that they're not needed, but the old role is no longer needed. Where do you think it's going overall at a bigger picture level for the more junior people?
Great question. And I'm not sure I've got the kind of, well, certainly not the crystal ball to tell you.
If you had the answer, that would be unbelievable. It's really just like, what are your thoughts?
It's a hot topic. And I'm a member of an IPA business group, working with many other kind of agency MDs and leaders. And it's a key topic. We're seeing a lot of people either in those roles or more senior roles leaving the industry because they're so worried. They've been spooked by what's going on. And is this a career now for me? Do I have a career that I can thrive in? But also we are finding actually some of the hires we're making are more kind of mid to senior level. Because as you say, that junior role is tricky.
Yeah.
But I think if I do respond to it, maybe based on my personal experience, is I'm starting now to see people who aren't necessarily industry folk. They might start to make sideways moves. And I always look at people in terms of attitude.
Right.
Attitude first, because you can teach people things. Yeah, you can absolutely mold them into the type of person based on our culture and based on the work that we're doing. But absolutely, right here, right now, that junior level, that entry role is tough.
Yeah.
But I am really, really, really keen to try and continue to support new people coming into our industry. So the IPA are, again, of course, very dedicated to doing that too. And they hold kind of IPA unlock days where they get a lot of students going to different agencies to understand what the industry is all about. And of course, part of our industry now is leveraging AI and going back to our earlier point to finding people ultimately who are curious, who are great partners, who are relationship people, who want to get the best out of their client relationship. So there's going to be different rules of the game for sure when you're coming to recruit. And actually it might put into question, as you say, some of the typical roles that you'll or titles that you create or you'll see on rate cards. But, bolstering and still making sure people see this industry as an attractive one to come into is incredibly important. So, hopefully we'll continue to fight the good fight.
And that craft track, bringing new young people into the craft lane of the agency world, that will continue to exist.
Yes.
High craft, high judgment, creative people, be that writing or image or video or whatever it might be, or just like brand strategy, those roles will still exist. They'll morph and they'll change, but they'll still exist.
Yeah, more and more so, because it goes back to this age of average point. I'm really nervous that we'll get to a point where actually wherever you look, it looks so similar.
It's all a bit bland.
Yeah. And so we need those craft people. We need those creative folk to come and tell us a new story and disrupt and challenge and keep us smiling, ultimately.
Exactly.
Keep us smiling, keeping us feeling like there's new stuff out there.
Yeah. So let's conclude with, what's the right business model for a creative agency of the near future? Yeah, we talked about that blend of cockpit and orchestration and engine. And you can talk about whatever you like in that, because business model is quite a broad phrase. But what do you think is the new business model going forward?
It's a great question. And I loved, by the way, your report is fantastic. And I think your checklist at the beginning for CEOs is one that everybody should obsess over. And if you're not talking to your leadership team, you're bored about it, get round a table very, very quickly to go through that checklist. But I think it's a question that does show, obviously, how leaders are now thinking. And I think it takes me back to an event that we ran a couple of years ago around AI versus authentic intelligence. It was only a morning. It could have been days worth of content. But ultimately, we know that AI is going to deliver speed, scale, greater pattern recognition and predictive optimization. But the authentic intelligence, the human part, can deliver the empathy, deliver the context. Importantly, responsibility. Because I don't think we're there yet either with regards to ethics and responsibility on how we're using AI, because it's moving at such a pace. There aren't necessarily rules of the game that are clear yet. And we know that, again, through working with the IPA lawyers. Everyone's still trying to wrestle with, actually, how do we own this thing? How are we responsible with it? So I think our key principle is AI should amplify the human intelligence, but never replace it. And I think that, we need to continue to lean in. So practical framing for us and for our clients is continue to lean in, explore, iterate, optimize where we can. And we are absolutely using AI tools to do that. But we remain accountable for bringing the meaning, bringing the cultural impact, finding that brand truth and thinking about long-term consequences. So not just planning for tomorrow, next week, the following quarter, planning for longer term and being the steady human hand that helps our brands guide the way. Because ultimately, where we bring the edge is that wonderful word of craft, is that wonderful point that we have, which is judgment. So you go back to, there's so much more we can do now with these brilliant tech and AI advancements around judgment and measurement, but it's that taste. So craft won't disappear. I actually think it will become more and more valuable. It moves upstream.
I think it will. I think you're absolutely right. I think that craft and the ability for, when you're talking to brands, talking to your clients, talking to the CMO, talking to the CEO, talking to the CFO, they need growth. They need profitable growth.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm being blunt and bold, I think what some agencies have failed to grasp over the years is being a growth advisor in a market whereby you've got channel proliferation across organic and paid and social and influencer, and being that holistic growth advisor, that's a critical role. And there's a danger, I think, that agencies can be too narrow in their thinking around their specialism, as opposed to the brand needs growth and they need to know how to deliver that growth in the most risk-weighted way. What are your just thoughts on that?
Well, going back to your question just moments ago, I think your cockpit orchestration engine model is spot on because it gives a framework for agencies to think about how they then approach the future. So cockpit is all about the client experience, the insight and the leadership. Really high value stuff. That includes business understanding, giving them some really clear strategic counsel and creative direction and built on relationship and trust.
Yep.
The orchestration part of it absolutely demands kind of high judgment coordination, and it's going to be a core skill for the agencies for the future because it's understanding how we manage those AI tools and platforms and partners and understanding the trade-offs we think we should make.
Yes.
The agency's job isn't to do everything, it's to make everything make sense.
Yeah.
And I think more and more brands obviously are looking for agencies to help them do that. And then, as you say, the engine execution part of it is automated and it will continue to get more and more automated. So not overpricing the engine because actually there's so much now that can deliver efficiency because ultimately if we overprice it, that will erode trust and you won't have a client.
Exactly right.
Interestingly though, I think one thing we're still seeing actually in RFIs is rate card. People are still looking at rate cards.
Oh God. It won't go away.
No, they're looking at rate cards and asking for rate cards. But then the other question is, but how are you then using AI to deliver efficiency?
Exactly.
So everyone is still tussling with it, I think.
They are.
How they're asking agencies now to show up to deliver kind of value.
And bluntly, Claire, procurement, I think, are a bit conflicted at the moment. On the one hand, they like the rate card model. They know it, they like it, and they can also apply a lot more pressure now because they know that agencies are using AI for efficiency. So part of the procurement world is, well, if I want to deliver some savings, I can push harder because I know you're more efficient. But the flip side of the coin is, but procurement also want to work with their internal business partners to drive business outcomes. So they want to buy from an agency outcomes. They want an agency to have some skin in the game. They want it to drive performance. So the two are different.
Yeah.
One's buying activities, one's buying outcomes. They're different, but they want both. But they can't have both, bluntly. And that will start to adapt and change as well.
For sure. And I think, everybody in this world is still tussling with what it actually means. And that's why I think your report was so timely. And as you say, the contributions that people have made to it are evident. Yeah. But this is such we could probably talk about this for days, couldn't we?
Yes, we could.
And I know certainly one-on-one we'll probably continue to talk about it.
We will. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Claire, it's been amazing. Thanks ever so much for joining me. What are your kind of takeaways? Just like one or two things that if you were listening to this in the car, way to school, way back from school, way to work. What would you want to kind of be thinking about as the two takeaways?
Well, for me, I feel very, very confident in one respect, because why I got into this industry was because I love building relationship. Well, I love the creative. I love working with creative people, but I love building relationships. And as I said, I think that AI advancements allows us to do what humans are really good at, which is feeling emotion, which is looking people in the eye and building good, trusted partnerships. And so actually, I hope this gets back to, go and see your clients, go and have a coffee with them, go and sit around their boardroom tables and start building connection back, because that is something that will always be a core strength of us as humans. But I think absolutely what your report has demonstrated, and I know I gave some advice earlier on, which is if you're not talking to your board and your leadership team about that checklist that you've got in the piece that you wrote, do. That should be something that we obsess over as agency leaders, because it's moving at a rate of knots. Where we are here today won't be the same next week or the week after.
Exactly.
So constantly think about what is your uniqueness. What are clients buying from you? What have your client health checks told you in the past where your key strengths are? Because actually, to your point, if you've relied a lot on engine profit, that is no more. So how do we leverage what we do and have a point of view on that and help guide both our agencies through it, but also hold our clients' hand in doing so too? So don't wait for procurement to come to you. Be much more front-footed with how you're leveraging the new tech and AI advancements to build efficiencies where clients can then show return on investment to their board.
Brilliant. Claire, I can't think of a better place to end the episode. It's been amazing having you. Thank you for joining me. Where can people find out more about you?
So best place is probably LinkedIn, or do go and visit our website. So it's Southpaw Agency. Go and find us. But hit me up on LinkedIn is probably the best place to go. But it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel very honoured.
Thoroughly enjoyed it, Claire. It's been a great conversation. Thanks.
No problem.
Thanks for listening to Higgle, the B2B Sales Club podcast series with your host, Mike Lander. Please subscribe so that you'll catch all the next episodes.